All right, so Elementor Pro, right. Big update just came out. Version 3.25.0 dropped just the other day.
Oh,
On the 28th of October.
nice.
You know, I always get kind of curious when these updates come out.
Yeah.
But this one, they tweaked the search widget.
Oh,
And it seems like it's a pretty big deal for anyone with a content-heavy site.
okay.
You know, we were just looking at this article from Mention the Name of the website or blog, and it's already got me kind of intrigued.
Yeah, what really jumped out at me was how this small change kind of fits into this bigger trend in web design.
Oh, yeah.
Like this whole obsession with speed and user experience.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know, Google's been like really hammering on about core web vitals lately.
Right.
And it seems like Elementor Pro is like staying ahead of the curve with this update.
So it's not just about making things look nice.
Right.
There's some serious performance stuff going on.
Exactly. Like before this update, the live search would just like dump everything onto the page at once. Can you imagine trying to find like one specific article on a massive blog?
Oh, man.
You'd be scrolling forever.
Yeah.
That's not just annoying for the user, it also puts a strain on your server,
Oh, I see.
especially if you have like a ton of images or videos in those results.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they added pagination to break it up right.
Yes.
Like those next page buttons you see everywhere.
Exactly. And that's where it gets really cool.
Okay.
We all know pagination can make things easier for the user,
Mm-hmm.
but it also directly impacts site speed.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Loading results in chunks means faster load times,
I see.
which keeps visitors happy and helps with your search engine ranking.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. So it's a win-win.
It is.
But wait a second. Isn't pagination like a kind of old school thing? It feels like I haven't seen it that much lately,
Yeah.
especially with all this like fancy infinite scroll stuff popping up everywhere.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Infinite scroll can be super engaging,
Mm-hmm.
especially for visual content like
Yeah.
social media.
Yeah, like just scrolling and scrolling.
Right. But when it comes to search results, users often want control and clarity,
Oh, okay.
and pagination gives them that.
I see.
So it's all about using the right tool for the job.
So Elementor Pro is giving us like the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I think so.
They still have the infinite scroll option for other things.
Right.
But for search, they're going back to basics with pagination.
Yeah. They're acknowledging that different users need different things depending on what they're doing.
Okay.
And this update gives web creators the flexibility to choose what works best for their site and their audience.
I like that. That makes a lot of sense. I am curious about how it works, though.
Oh, yeah.
Is this going to be like a nightmare for developers to add to their sites?
From what I've seen, it's actually really easy.
Oh, good.
You just turn on the pagination option in the search widget settings,
Okay.
and boom, you're done.
Wow.
They even let you customize the number of results per page.
Oh, that's a nice touch.
Yeah, it is.
So they're not just like, here's pagination, deal with it.
No,
There's actual control there for developers to like fine-tune it.
exactly. And that level of control is super important. You
Yeah.
can make sure that the pagination matches your website's design
Right.
and fits the content you're showing.
Mhm.
You wouldn't want a million pages
Yeah.
for a search that only has 20 results.
Oh, God, no, that would be a nightmare. Okay, so there's some strategy here.
Yeah,
You need to think about how many results per page makes sense.
exactly. And that's where the article brings up something pretty interesting.
Oh, what's that?
The psychology of pagination.
Really?
Yeah, apparently there's this like sweet spot for how many results to show per page.
Mm.
And it changes depending on the type of content and what the user's trying to do.
Okay, now I'm really curious. What is this magic number?
Uh-huh. Well, that's a question for our next segment.
Ooh,
We'll get into the psychology of pagination.
okay.
Look at some examples of websites that are doing it really well and talk about how to choose the right settings for different types of content.
I can't wait.
Stay tuned.
All right, we'll be right back.
Welcome back. You know, it's funny.
What's that?
We talk about user experience as like this new thing,
Yeah.
but pagination's been around forever.
Sure.
I mean, think about libraries.
Yeah.
They don't just chuck every single book onto like one giant shelf.
That's true. Like those card catalogs,
Yeah.
dividing things up into categories,
Well,
making them
yeah.
searchable. So what's changed? Why is everyone talking about it again?
I think it's all about context.
Yeah.
Pagination kind of fell out of favor
Mm-hmm.
because infinite scroll was like the shiny new toy,
Right.
especially for stuff like social media with tons of pictures.
Yeah, just endless scrolling.
Right. But when people are actually looking for something specific,
Oh, yeah.
they want to know how much information they have to deal with.
I see.
And pagination gives them that. They see the page numbers
Mm-hmm.
and they instantly know how big the whole thing is.
That makes sense. It's like browsing Pinterest is way different than like researching something.
Totally. And that's where the psychology comes in.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that.
There's actually research that shows that too many choices can overwhelm people.
Really?
Yeah, and it leads to decision paralysis.
Yeah.
Ever spent like hours scrolling through Netflix
Oh my God, all the time.
and you just can't pick a movie?
Yeah. So you're saying too many pages of search results can be like that?
It could be. If someone searches your site and sees like 20 pages of results,
Yeah.
they might just give up.
Ugh, sure.
The key is to find that balance.
Okay.
Enough results to be useful,
Right.
but not so many that it's just overwhelming.
So how do we find that sweet spot?
Right. The article mentions some specific numbers,
It did.
but it's not about just like blindly following a formula.
Okay.
It really depends on your content.
Okay.
If you have a blog with hundreds of articles,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 10 results per page is fine.
Okay.
But for an online store with thousands of products, you might need to go higher, like 20 or 25.
Oh, okay. And it's not just the number of results, right?
No,
The design of the pagination matters too.
absolutely. Like you don't want those clunky numbered links.
Oh, yeah. Those are the worst.
Modern pagination is about having clear visual cues,
Okay.
navigation that makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
and even incorporating design elements that match your brand.
So it's not just about adding pagination.
Right.
It's about doing it strategically
Exactly.
and like really thinking it through.
Yeah.
Are there any websites that are doing this well?
Tons. One that comes to mind is mention an example of a website.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that one.
They have so many products,
They do.
but their search results are beautifully paginated.
Oh, nice.
Clear page numbers,
Mhm.
a next button that's easy to find,
Yeah.
and the whole thing just fits perfectly with their minimalist design.
I've noticed that some websites are adding filters along with the pagination.
Yeah,
Is that becoming like a standard thing?
it's definitely a trend,
Okay.
especially for e-commerce.
Makes sense.
It gives users even more control.
Mm.
They can narrow things down by category or price range or whatever.
So it's like layering those user experience elements to
Exactly.
make browsing super intuitive.
Right. And I bet this also helps with site performance.
Oh, you're right. The more you can refine those search results,
Yeah.
the less data you have to load.
It's all connected. But combining pagination with smart filters,
Mm-hmm.
you're improving usability and optimizing performance.
So many good things happening at once.
It's like a chain reaction of good stuff.
This is seriously making me rethink how I do search on my own website.
That's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
And speaking of improvements,
Yeah.
there's one more thing about pagination we should talk about.
Oh, what's that?
Accessibility.
Oh, that's a great point. You're right. We haven't even touched on that.
Yeah, what do we need to do to make sure pagination is accessible to everyone?
That's a good question.
Well, first we need to think about keyboard navigation.
Okay.
Can people use just their keyboard to move through the pages? Are the links and buttons clearly labeled?
Mm-hmm.
And what about screen readers?
Yeah. How do we make sure those work properly with pagination?
That's where ARIA attributes come in.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of those.
You add special tags to the HTML code,
Okay.
and it gives extra information to screen readers,
Oh, cool.
like what page you're on, the total number of pages, and how everything's connected.
So it's not just about the look of it. We have to think about the code, too.
Yes, to make sure the pagination is truly accessible.
Right. This reminds me of something you said earlier
What's that?
about how even small design choices can have like a ripple effect.
It's true. And when it comes to accessibility, those small choices can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Like whether someone can actually use your website or not.
Right. That's a powerful thought to keep in mind.
Absolutely.
As we kind of wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
pagination might seem simple,
Hmm.
but it affects so many things.
It really does.
Usability, performance, ethics,
Right.
accessibility.
And in the end, it's about making a website that works for everyone.
Absolutely. And speaking of which,
Yeah.
I think it's time to move to our final segment.
Sounds good.
We've covered so much,
We have.
but there's one more piece of the puzzle.
Oh, what's that?
Ethical considerations.
Oh, interesting.
I hadn't even thought about that angle. Let's take a quick break,
Okay.
and then we'll dive into the ethics of pagination and wrap things up. All right, we're back, and wow, my mind is officially blown. We've gone from search widgets to psychology to performance, and now ethics.
Yeah,
This deep dive has been a wild ride.
I know, right?
So let's talk ethics.
Okay.
What kind of ethical concerns are there with pagination?
Well, one that comes to mind is manipulation.
Oh,
Pagination could be used to like subtly influence what a user chooses.
Oh,
especially in e-commerce or online advertising.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Like if a website puts certain products on the first page,
Exactly.
they're basically saying those are more important than the others.
Right. And if they're doing that just to make more money and not because it's actually better for the user,
Yeah.
that's a problem.
It's like those dark patterns we hear about.
Oh, yeah.
Those sneaky tricks some websites use.
Right. Like imagine a website makes the add to cart button super obvious,
Okay.
but then they hide the remove from cart button on like page 5.
Oh, wow. That's sneaky.
It is. So how do we make sure we're using pagination ethically?
Yeah, it feels like a fine line between helping users and tricking them.
I think it comes down to intent.
Okay.
Are we doing this to make the experience better for the user,
Right.
or are we just trying to get them to do what we want?
That makes sense. And being transparent, too.
Yes. Like, are we being open about how and why we're using pagination? And are we giving users control over how they browse?
It's like we need an ethical checklist for pagination
That's a great app.
alongside all the technical and design stuff.
Right. And that checklist should include accessibility, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Making sure everyone can use it.
That's not just ethical. It's good design.
Absolutely. This deep dive has really shown me how complex pagination is.
Me too. It's a simple idea, but it affects so much.
Usability, performance, ethics, accessibility, it's a lot.
It is. And I think that's a key takeaway.
Yeah.
In web design, like in life, the small things often have the biggest impact.
That is so true.
It's about paying attention to the details, thinking about the bigger picture, and trying to create experiences that are good for everyone.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, I think that about wraps up this deep dive.
Yeah, I think
A huge thank you to our expert for all these amazing insights.
My pleasure. I always enjoy these conversations.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
We hope you learned some valuable stuff.
Hopefully you can use it to build even better websites.
More user-friendly, performant, and ethical.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries.
Yes, the web is always changing, so we have to keep learning.
This has been The Deep Dive, signing off.